Hello everybody, today we are going to see a quick tour of the user interface of Olympe DRAW. One concept to have clearly in mind about the Olympe platform is this. With usual coded languages, as we can see here on the left side of the drawing on the screen, you have full flexibility of whatever you want to do, meaning like you can build whatever application you want. There is no limit. On the other hand, the low-code platforms, which are composition platforms, which are represented here on the right side of the screen, offer full speed, so you can go fast to compose your application, to do simple designs and move quickly. But you don't have the flexibility that code offers. Well, Olympe is the best of two worlds. So it offers on one hand the composition aspect, which is Olympe DRAW, and which is going to be the topic of this tutorial. And on the other hand, for some specific part of the implementation, you can delegate the work to a software engineering team who is going to code that work for you. Olympe platform bridges the gap between those two worlds and offers the best of two worlds. So you can compose and you can code, all in one platform, one product. So today the focus is on DRAW and its user interface. So we're going to look at the different parts and how to navigate the interface in order to accomplish the following tutorials that will be about building applications. So the first time you are going to load the DRAW platform on the community, you are going to be presented with a folder and a list of sample applications. The purpose of those applications is to first be able to run them instantaneously and look into how they are implemented. So some have a tutorial, like here, the color app has a tutorial, and there's a tooltip that tells you you can do it in less than 15 minutes. Well, that might depend on your skills and how fast you move on, but that shows the level of difficulty. For instance, here the calculator, you go here and you can say run it in the browser. It loads, and here you can say 9 times 9 equal, great, it's functional, perfect. You can also run it on the phone. Here, even with this video, you can scan that QR code and you can see it's going to run on your phone because it's going to run exactly the sample I'm showing you in that tutorial. Okay, so each app should be properly documented. So if I go back to here, there's a brick that tells me what it is. And if I go to the color app, there is even a link to the tutorial. It loads the live tutorial in the online documentation. And some are complex, like air traffic is a complex app. It's connected to the OpenSky API. It shows you in real time real planes in the real world on your screen, and you can even take control of one of those planes with your cell phone, for instance. And others are more simple. Here, a very simple app that shows you the difference action versus function. And that's pretty much it. This you can start with Hello World. Usually you start with that, and you can complexify. Okay, so when you first log into the application, so here I went through the process of creating a user account, logging in. So I'm logged into DRAW and I created a subfolder for my demos and tutorials, which is named tutorials. So here on top, you're going to see that as you dig down into the various projects and subfolders where you're located, this is the breadcrumb showing you the current location about where you are. This is the main editor. So here we are in folder editor, project or folder. It's empty. We are going to create stuff in it, so you're going to see what's happening. And on the right, you have the marketplace. The marketplace is where you have all the bricks, but not all the bricks of the platform, but all the bricks that make sense to be used in a given editor. So here, for instance, I can only create folders or projects, right? It wouldn't make any sense to have a UI brick or an API brick in this location. So here I can create a folder, for instance. You drag and drop, right, bricks into your editor. I can create also a project. You see, so here I created a project and a folder. And if I get into, we can rename this one by test, for instance. And as you dig down, you see that the breadcrumb has followed the path to where you're located. So I'm in subfolder. In that folder, I also can create a project. So project B. And if I open my project B, you see that B is inside the subfolder test inside tutorials. So if I come back here, I can delete, those bricks. Everything is a brick. So a folder is a brick, a project is a brick, and they all come down from the marketplace. So I'm going to create a project and I'm going to name it test. This is going to help us look at the other editors of the application, right? So, but let's stay here for a while, because here you have the marketplace, and just below it, when you're not familiar yet with the platform, you have a Learn the Basics section, right? And here it shows you how to execute a sample. You can see, well, what's the Learn the Basics, this is what I'm explaining now. And each time, the same way the marketplace presents to you only the bricks that make sense in an editor, the Learn the Basics section presents to you only the sections that make sense to be known, to know, to be familiar with for a given editor. So as you see here, it's all about creating folders and projects, running examples, and what's the marketplace, and how to share a project as a library, okay? And you can collapse this if it doesn't make any sense, so that you focus on the marketplace. So maybe in the beginning, you're gonna have everything open because you wanna know what you can do in a given editor. But as you become more and more familiar, well, you can collapse it and only have the marketplace. So this marketplace is also resizable, right? It has a default size, so here you can have it small, and you'll have a search. So search doesn't make much sense here because we have two bricks and we see them, but sometimes you might have dozens and pages of bricks, and the search is going to help you find the related bricks, right? You'll see that here you can upload a file or zip. So what's that? We'll see later that any project, so here you have my test projects. Here I can export it, so it's going to generate a zip. I can try it now, even though it's empty, I can do it. So a zip file is here, so it exports all my data. That's a way to archive a project. And this is going to be a way you can give it to someone else, use it somewhere else. So now we're going to look at each editor can have multiple tabs. So here I have an admin tab, which no one else is going to see because I'm an admin of the whole platform. So no need to spend some time there. But here you have the help menu, which is going to be very useful when you discover the platform. Even if you're an expert, sometimes you need to access the help. And here you have various things. So here you have access to Discord. So here it can be loaded inside the app, but you also can install the standalone application. And here at any time you can see what's the activity on the forum. Like for instance here, you can see what are the current discussions. And if you're logged in, you can even communicate with the rest of the teams. No need to install anything, but you'll find out that it's sometimes easier to install the app. So here you can install the app, and you have tons of specific channels for draw, for code, for bricks, for the orchestrator. You have useful links. You have tons of information, and the team is always available to answer your questions. So don't hesitate if you're stuck to ask the team on Discord. You have the platform documentation. Here it's well documented, and you have also the code API for coded bricks. In these tutorials we're going to focus on draw, but the help covers absolutely everything. You have tutorials, you have the reference guide, you have lots of information. So what do we have? You can send feedback to the team about the product. You can directly access the tutorials, and you can report an issue if you find a defect that's a blocking defect. So feel free to use it, and help the team build a better product to have you get a better user experience. Okay, so now let's see what other editors we have. We created a project, we can open it. Inside the project, right away we see that the content of the marketplace has changed. Why that? The content of the marketplace depends on the editor where we are at, and here we are in the project editor. Inside the project editor, what can you create? A project. A project is made of a data model, is made of APIs that manipulate the data model, and the optionally applications that will execute. Okay, so there's a strong separation between those three, and that's what makes Olympe very interesting. There are multiple tabs. So here you have for any brick, because a project is a brick again, for any brick you have the spec and doc tab. Spec and doc tab is made to describe, so this is my tour project, okay, and you can have longer description about my tour, okay, and which makes it easy to access. Here in the information of a given brick you have the tooltip. So here the tooltip shows the summary, but if I click on the help you see my summary and the description. So each time you you navigate your marketplace or you navigate a project, you can have access to those bricks. Like here you have the information, the description of what's an action, and the description is here. Okay, so you also have a dependency tab. Today we have a few by default, primordial and core, which can help you access all the bricks that are located here on the marketplace, but you can add more. And as we go further, we are going to see the rest. Here, that's a static analysis panel that will show you where you have problems or where you have misuse of some relationships between the bricks, and you're going to see that. And this is a tab made to help you define who you are going to collaborate with on your project. So by default, any project is private. No one can see it. It's your stuff. No one else can see it. But you can decide to make it visible to everybody. Visible doesn't make it editable, just visible. You can always share the link to the final application, but here it's that way your project becomes discoverable by everybody and they can see and read your code. But if you want anyone to contribute, then you can add them as contributor here. First, usually you're going to start working with a data model, and that's where, so here I'm going to do my test data model, and the data model will have an editor, and again this editor has only the bricks usable in that editor. And for instance, you can create one here. There is going to be, let's say, a point of interest, and in that point of interest you can add, let's say, a name. So here you have properties on the brick that you can drag and drop, and you say, this is the name of my point of interest. So here you have your data model. It has the equivalent of classes depending on the language or you know what approach you have to your design, and it has properties. But based on that, you need to be able to manipulate those data. So once again, you know, if I collab the marketplace, look at the basics, going to explain you everything. It's going to explain everything to you, and how to create instances and how to generate helpers, which is what I want to show you now. So now what we want to do is generate an API to manipulate the data. So here, that's the menu you're going to use. And you say, okay, I want to save it here in my project, and I want to get and set the data. Constructor and forms, we could create that too, but we're going to see that later. And here we see we created our first APIs, which are get point of interest attributes and set attributes. And if I look at the help, it's been generated for us, and it has an input an object, which is my point of interest, and in input I have my name. So it's going to set the name. Okay. So as we see, there are different colors. Data is colored in green, so that shows a strong separation, visual separation of the data model and API. And then we are going to want to build, so here I can go back and generate the UI part here. I'm going to say, I'm going to add a form. And that form, what's going to be? It's going to be a visual component here in yellow. So all the visual components are yellow. That's the third color. And if we open it, we have a visual component with just a name, because the name is the only property of our data model, data type. Okay? And only then we decide to create an application. So an application is a UI app. And here we have the fourth color. So apps are in red, visual components in yellow, APIs, bricks again, but there are really APIs to manipulate the data are in purple. And in green you have data management, and those makes the four colors of the logo of the Olympe platform, as you see above. So what's the app? We're gonna see some tutorials to build apps, but it's just to show you that if you go down into the app, you have your screen. You can have multiple screens, by the way. So here I can add another screen. So screens are, depending on where you are in the app, you can have a single page app, but you can have multiple pages with transitions, and we're going to see that later. And you also can comment anytime. So here you can say, this design is to be finished. So if anyone opens it, says, okay, well, that's why there's no relation between screens, and okay, we need to finish that. Again, there are properties for the screen and all, but the idea of today is to show that when you design, again, your marketplace has a content specific to that screen, and learn the basics again. So here you can only add screens and run and transition between screens, okay? If I dig down into a screen, that's where you can compose your application. And again, here I'm in a visual editor. Each editor has a name, and the marketplace offers you only the bricks you can use. So here you can only create a UI app. Okay. The strength of Olympe is that here we look at the composition platform. The draw is the composition part, right? Aspect of the platform. So here we can create a front-end application, but the good thing is you can also create back-end applications. So this is a back-end application which has no UI. If we open it, there's not going to be any UI. There's going to be some services, right? Okay. And that we'll see later again. Today is really a quick tour of the UI. Okay, so now we have built absolutely all kinds of pieces you can add to a project, even though we see that in a marketplace, if we collapse everything, you can do so much more. But there's so much more. You see that you can add what we call soft-coded APIs, which are actions and functions, but you can also code your actions and function here in the way of coded actions and coded functions. So here you have the search. For instance, I'm going to create a new API. Let's call it an action, and I'm going to name it test. And I'm going to show you how we use the search. And here, let's say I want to know the date of today. So if you see, look at how many bricks we have. It's complicated to navigate that, but so I don't know which one I want. I want to get today's date. So I want the date. Okay, well, there are too many. Okay, well, so I'm going to try something else. Current date. Current date, here I have now. Okay, what is it? Provides the current date. Great, that's exactly what I want. But just the name itself is not helping me. But the search is smart enough to find it for me. So yes, that's the now brick that I want. It's going to return the current date. So that's just to show you an example about the search. So the search is very helpful for that. Okay, again, this is a brick. So we have the spec and doc brick, the same we saw in the project. Okay, back to my project. Oh, by the way, I was in the action here at any time. So this is not fully functional. We're going to see that later. But here you have a play button. So at any time, you can run your action and test it. This doesn't do anything, obviously, but that's a good way to execute locally your APIs to test them. So here we have an app. Our app is pretty simple. It does nothing. It has a simple screen. I dropped a button, and I can also reuse the visual component we generated automatically. So this is the form where I have my name. That's the one that was generated. If I double click on it, you see I go to my POI form. If I go back to the app that uses it. So soon we are going to see how we build an application, but what I want to show now is the visual tool of the UI, and so in that sense we need to look at those buttons. This will execute the app in a new tab. You see a new tab was open. And that new tab executes something that just shows the visual components without executing them or their logic, because there's no logic. The same way you can scan the QR code with a phone, and someone can scan the QR code and execute that directly on the phone. You don't need to do it because that's a temp app, so if you do it looking at this video, you'll see nothing. Because as soon as I'm done with this tutorial, it's going to be deleted and it won't exist anymore. At any time, let's say I could, with my test app, add a dependency. So for instance, geolocation. I'm going to get the current geolocation. So this is in my current project, but if I use, let's say, here, I'm going to add a brick that comes from a different project. Comments. Yes, I want to import. Yes, I want to create a dependency on that project. And there you go. I have it. So now what do I see? I see that in my dependencies, here, dependencies, I added a new dependency. And, oh, where is it, by the way? Oh, it's here, and I go to, and that's where the dependency is. Okay, that's the brick. So you see, a lot of things was done automatically for me, and looking at the UI, that's how to access it. So something interesting is, you see there are two bricks of different colors. This is gray, this is purple. Gray means if I double click on it, I won't see anything. I would just see the documentation of that brick. But no logic. I don't know how it's implemented. Why? Because it's been coded. It's been coded most likely in JavaScript. And I don't have the code. But here, this is a purple brick. A purple brick means what we call soft coded, meaning like it's been implemented directly inside Draw. So I can double click on it and look at its implementation. And that's the implementation of that brick that comes with the community directly for free. So no need to spend time deciphering it now and understanding the logic, just to show you that pressing the back button, I can come back to where it is. But this is a super brick made of the composition of multiple bricks. Something else I want to show you is that here you can use, let's say, any brick here, and here you have a small search. So here you can show the usage of those bricks. And this brick has been used in comments and in here. So at any time you can jump to where it's used. So I'm going to go to here, and that's where it's used also. So the list usage for a given brick, so a different example could be done that way. So I'm going to say this is my brick A, and I'm going to create an action that's going to be test B. In test B, I'm going to reuse my brick A. So again, I created a brick, it's here in the marketplace. No documentation because I didn't write anything, no parameter because I didn't define them, but it's here. I can drag and drop it. And now I'm in my project and I want to see, okay, I have some bricks, but are they used? So test A, yes, it's used in B. Okay, oh, it's used here. Oh, great. Okay. And but B, is it used? Oh, it's not used. Okay, it's used nowhere. So when you inspect your project, that's a help to help you navigate your project, but that's also maybe a help to help you tell you what is useful and what could be deleted, what is dead code, or what you forgot to implement, for instance. So, but that's a very powerful tool when your project gets bigger and bigger. Here in your data management, again, you can have multiple data types and you can create relations between them. Here I'm going to create an object address, and at any given time I can take my address, drag and drop here, and it's going to create a relation. So this is how you create relations. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with a quick first tour of the app, and something else that is a bit hidden in the app is this navigation panel. So at any time here you have a tree view of all the content of your project. That can be useful, and you can collapse it and close it at any time. To sum it up, we have a marketplace, a learn the basic sections, an editor, and we have multiple editors, so we understand that for data we have a data model editor, right? For actions and functions, APIs, in a sense, you have function editor, which is named action editor in the case of an action. Again, the difference between those two is going to be explained later. But so you know, here there is a learn the basic sections to explain to you the difference between actions and functions. So there's going to be most likely a tutorial dedicated to that, to really show the difference between those two. An app, before we go into the app, you have the here visual component editor, which is the same as the UI app editor. So you see here we have a visual component, and here we have a UI app. And when you edit a screen, you have the same editor, which is called the visual editor. And again, marketplace and on the basics dedicated for that editor. The great thing about Olympe DRAW is you can debug your code. And this is very helpful. It's going to be very interesting when we look at the differences between actions and functions. This is really super helpful for that. So that's pretty much it. And we'll see also later on that here you have this icon, create an open API connector. And here that's a way to import a JSON file that has all the definitions of the REST APIs we want to import and wrap into bricks, generate data models for us, and this is going to be done for us automatically. Again, explained somewhere under Learn the Basics, and here, Swagger and Open API. There is the Pokemon tutorial, that's a quick tutorial to explain it to you, and there is a link to it. And that's it.